Grace Chan and this is Anna Wong, and we're speaking to you from the National Carillon in Canberra, Australia. We're delighted to be part of the 2021 WCF GCNA Congress.
In Europe and North America, you have so many carillons. In Australia, we only have 3. One in Sydney, one in Bathurst, and one here in Canberra. And we only have about 25 carillonneurs, which makes us a rather special group of people. So for most Australians, they do not even know what a carillon is. So our challenge is how can we help our communities, our audiences, understand what the carillon is as a musical instrument, but also as a public space that they want to revisit. How can we better connect with our audiences and our communities?
So we've embraced the wonderful conference theme, broadening the repertoire, music for everyone. But we've decided to concentrate on broadening our conceptual repertoire and bring in urban planning and public health concepts such as well-being and placemaking.
So let's have a think about what placemaking and well-being is all about and why these concepts might be important when we're thinking about the role of the carillon. Placemaking is a social and urban design concept. It's a philosophy about how we might design, plan and manage a public place for the people who use it. Put simply, it's about understanding why a community might be connected to a place, why they love it.
So is it a bit like thinking about why you like going to a cafe?
Or your favourite
park?
Okay. Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, put simply, well-being is a public health concept. It includes feeling good about yourself and feeling positive about life. It involves many factors such as social, economic, psychological, emotional, and also having engaging activities and work. So it's a broad range of things, but an important part of well-being is having a sense of connection and togetherness within your community. Well-being is judging life positively and feeling good. That and the following is from the Centre of Disease Control website in the US. Well-being includes physical well-being, economic well-being. Carillons are an important source of open access, free music for audiences. They are also a place of income, livelihood for musicians, bell founders, engineers, architects and management bodies. Well-being includes social well-being, community well-being. We have many families come to the Carillon precinct to celebrate graduations, weddings, school holidays. People can kayak, fish and picnic on Aspen Island, where the National Carillon is located. We can think about well-being in terms of musician well-being. That includes feeling respected, feeling treated as a professional and having a professional place of work, being acknowledged in programs and media material. It means musicians are included and listened to. It also means getting together to share food and, amongst ourselves, we are also a community. Well-being includes emotional well-being and psychological well-being. That makes me think of the recent project Healing Bells, which not only reaches out to each other as musicians, but also helps us link our communities in one global chain. A sense of well-being emanates from connection. When people have a connection to place, they also have a sense of belonging. This leads to emotional resonance. It is what makes us feel secure, happy, and part of a community. It leads to a sense of well-being. Music can make connections. With respect to a carillon, a musical instrument with a huge physical presence, one ingredient in establishing connection is placemaking.
So why should we think about how the carillon might become part of placemaking? The carillon, or even a solitary ceremonial bell, is often a sensory and physical focal point. Be a town or cathedral square, a city park or university, the carillon and its bell tower structure are often dominant features within its surrounds and environment. They are also public musical instruments. The music we play is immediately heard and embedded into the physical and sensory landscape. In Australia, because we only have 3 carillons, it makes them even more special. We'll take a look at each one to see what role they play in engaging with their communities to facilitate the sense of togetherness, connection and well-being. Australian carillons were built after World War I. Australians who fought and served in Europe often wrote home about the sound of bells, and the transformation of the carillon as a form of memorial was adopted. The carillon became a symbol for healing, for developing a sense of national identity in Australia, and a sense of honouring those who had served and died during the war. In a newspaper article published in the National Advocate in Bathurst in 1929, the reporter quoted a poem by an American poet named Frederick Cardozo, and it reads that we may not forget the lives they gave. Let deep bells sing the anthems of the brave. The newspaper article continues with the following. The power of the carillon is that they are public instruments. Their sounds cannot be shut within four walls, but must travel across space to the ears of many who are passing by. Their music is the most democratic of all. It can be heard by thousands. It is the music of the masses. What struck me about this article was that the notion of well-being and placemaking was already there right at the very beginning of the carillon culture in Australia. It just wasn't articulated in those terms. The purpose of building carillons in Australia was very much about bringing a nation together and also the community. The Soldiers' Memorial Carillon in Bathurst was built to commemorate the men of Bathurst and the surrounding areas who served in the First World War. It has since become a memorial for later wars that involved Australia. The Carillon Tower was funded through public donation, and it took many years for it to be completed. The bell tower is located in the middle of Bathurst in the city park known as King's Parade. It is surrounded by other major public buildings such as the courthouse and cathedral. The Memorial Carillon was officially unveiled on 12th November 1933 by the Mayor of Bathurst. The local newspaper reported that there was a large influx of visitors and a procession attended by 2 bands, militia, returned soldiers, and about 3,000 pupils from local schools and colleges. The Bathurst Carillon was not, however, actually finished in 1933. Due to insufficient funds, a clavier was not installed, and it was only after another major fundraising effort that additional bells, clappers, and a clavier were installed. On the 20th of May 2021, Bathurst happily celebrated the second opening of the Bathurst Carillon.
All the Australian Carillionaires have just returned from a series of events in Bathurst. We had a first concert, an inaugural Festival of Bells, and an official commissioning of the bells by the Bathurst Regional Council. We all performed as a volunteer collective to support the local students. They are being trained by my teacher Lynn Fuller from the National Carillon. We supported each other as a group, supported each other as musicians, and also supported local rural communities who, in turn, are supporting their own veterans and those fallen at previous wars. I performed an Australian elegy by F.S. Kelly, who died in World War I, and I also played Guy Mea Lilies, a new Australian work I've been practicing in Sydney and Canberra, and it helped me personally close the triangle between the towers, so to speak, personally and musically. One of the most moving moments for me was my friend Judy, an organist who lives locally, was invited me to the commissioning, and she comes from a small village called White Rock. During the commissioning, the local players rang the bells as solitary bells, and they read out the name of the village. Judy, who lost 5 uncles in the war, held my hand and squeezed it as she heard the bell from her village. And that for me was a very powerful moment of healing and also feeling connection with someone who is from that community who reached out to me to join with her in that very special moment. The University of Sydney War Memorial Carillon was built to honour the 197 students, graduates and staff who died in the First World War. It was funded through donations, with families, organisations and other universities providing money from around Australia. By 1924, £17,397 had been raised, about $2.25 million in today's money. The carillon was dedicated on Anzac Day, the 25th of April in 1928. The university continues to hold a dawn service with a carillon playing every Anzac Day. Anzac Echoes by Geert de Hollander was commissioned by Amy Johansson, the university carillionaire and organist, to mark the 100th anniversary of the 1915 landing at Gallipoli, Turkey, by Australian troops. Amy premiered it at the 2015 Anzac Day service. This piece was performed at the Anzac Day ceremony this year by Isaac Wong. At dawn, wreaths were laid by students from different colleges. The dawn service was attended by Simone Wetton, who works at our national broadcaster. Simone said that the sound of the bells stilled her mind and allowed her to reflect on a time university students and staff sacrificed so much for our country. The sound of the bells felt to her like a tribute to this incredible sacrifice. For the students and the staff at the university, the sounds of the bells forms part of university life. It's what you hear when you walk through the main quad. It is also embedded in university tradition. The carillon is played at every graduation ceremony that's located in the majestic Great Hall. The organ and carillon open and close the ceremony. Since our COVID restrictions have eased, I've been playing the organ and carillon at the graduations. We are having socially distanced ceremonies which are live streamed to look after the well-being of the students and the family so they can feel they can be part of each other's celebration of the end of their studies. The families are located in McLaurin Hall, which is separate to the Great Hall. So even though they're separated, they're connected by the music that extends across the quadrangle from the bells and from the organ. The live streaming not only goes across the quadrangle, but also globally. The sound of the bells gives students closure. It gives them a sense of celebration and community. It also signals the start of a professional life.
I first heard the sounds of the carillon when I was a student at Sydney University. Going to your classes, you'll just hear the bells ring. And of course, when I graduated, it became intertwined with such an important milestone in my life. So it's basically where I fell in love with the instrument. The National Carillon in Canberra is Australia's most recent bell tower. Like Sydney and Bathurst, a memorial carillon was also suggested for Canberra, but due to costs and the construction of the Australian War Memorial, the carillon idea was not supported. The current National Carillon was a gift from the British government to the Australian people to mark the 50th Jubilee of the founding of Canberra as the nation's capital in 1963. Before a crowd of about 25,000 people, Queen Elizabeth II opened the carillon in 1973 with the words, "In a few moments, the bells will be ready to play. Their harmony will be a reminder of the enduring ties of kinship between Britain and Australia." The carillon in Canberra is located on Aspen Island on Lake Burley Griffin, and it's also surrounded by a beautiful park called Kings Park. The National Carillon itself is a majestic modernist designed tower. Its landmark qualities within a planned capital city is dominant. Yet its location and lack of an immediate community is also one of the challenges for the carillon culture in Canberra. Unlike Sydney and Bathurst, it is not a memorial with an immediate connection to long-standing tradition. Both the carillonneurs and the National Capital Authority, the government agency that manages the carillon, have curated concerts and events to foster community engagement. We hold weekly lunchtime concerts and also some very large concerts to mark special occasions like Christmas and May the 4th Star Wars concerts, which are very, very popular. As part of the 50th anniversary of the carillons, the National Capital Authority commissioned 2 new bells, and the largest bell was actually named the Ngunnawal Bell. When the Ngunnawal Bell arrived on the island, it was marked by a smoking ceremony, and the significance of the smoking ceremony is actually a form of healing. And what was so special about this was this demonstration for connection to First Nations people. It was symbolic of unity, reconciliation, and a reflection on the past.
I think as musicians, we're always thinking about what we can play and what sound we can make in the tower. But there were two events which I really loved at the National Carillon that really taught me about the placemaking power of the carillon as a physical monument. There is also power in silence and power in being a visually iconic monument. The National Carillon often acts as a landmark for photojournalists, so they might film or take photos across Canberra, because it is also where our parliament is located. And to place it in Canberra, they'd get a picture of the carillon and people immediately know where the photo's taken. Recently, we had a flyover the tower to celebrate an anniversary, and my friend Astrid sent me some photos from the tower of the planes going overhead. And in Sydney, I saw the same planes on the news, but they put the carillon in the background, so I knew exactly where it was. It taught me about the use of the tower as a vantage point for significant events. The other memorable events that have happened at the tower, which didn't formally involve concerts, were Reconciliation Week and NAIDOT Week. And the tower acts as a dynamic canvas. There were no formal concerts scheduled, however the tower was still connecting with the community locally. That was done on site when they came to the bridge or came to the island to have a look, and also globally as all the projections were filmed on YouTube, and also they were in the media.
What we see in Australia is a very young carillon culture, and because of that we are trying to create a musical connection with our audiences and public. We are trying to understand that the carillon culture is more than just about making music. For the carillon to remain relevant, we need to understand that we are part of a bigger social landscape and that we are part of a place that needs to put people first. This is not to say that we cannot aspire to developing rich carillon musicianship and art, but we also need to think about how the carillon might relate to the history and traditions of the communities that surround it. If we can make the carillon more accessible and connected to people, we will contribute to a social environment that sees the carillon being an active part of a city's identity and social well-being. And in doing so, we will ensure the continuation of the carillon culture and therefore its sustainability.
We want you to think about the role your bell tower plays in placemaking and well-being. How does your local community relate to your music and carillon? How do we encourage togetherness in this time of social distancing, isolation and quarantine? Today, we're asking our fellow carillonneurs, how do we make the carillon for everyone? Outstanding musicianship and artistry is still front and centre. It's non-negotiable, but is performing beautiful music enough? We believe that thinking broadly and holistically can serve to refresh the musical choices we make in the tower and its surrounds. Wellbeing indicators are being incorporated by governments globally for urban planning and economic decision-making. We need to be aware and educate ourselves as carillonneurs about these urban planning and public health concepts, as we are not only musicians, we are custodians of musical monuments that are situated in a place. That place contains people who deserve to be well. We are playing a public instrument with a huge musical and cultural reach. We have a responsibility to broaden our conceptual repertoire. We both feel only then can our musical repertoire broaden sensitively and organically to embrace everyone.
We really enjoyed bringing you into our community today.
We hope we've given you some ideas about how you can connect to your communities and audiences in a placemaking sort of way.
Yes, I know as musicians we're always thinking about what music to play, but I think it's important to think about what communities might want to listen to and how they can also inform us of what they might be interested in doing with the music.
Because I guess if we better understand our communities and audiences, we will grow the carillon culture and ensure that we're here for another century.
Yes.
We'd really like to thank Christian Winter, Carillionaire of Alkmaar and the Ripe. Watching the tower at the Ripe come together in the last few years really inspired this placemaking talk. Thank you to our teacher Lynn Fuller, lead Carillionaire at the National Carillon, and also Anna Maria Reverte from Barcelona, being at her tower really showed me how the whole building was really the instrument and how important place is. Thank you also to Rien Donkersloot from Haarlem, Koen van Stader, and also Colin van der Leck. And lastly, a big thank you to Ms. Rosalind Hull from the National Capital Authority for her constant encouragement and access to the NCA archives.